Welcome. Now, today I am going to take up the second part of export of goods and services and FMR, because goods and services export and FMR is a very wider syllabus. So I am presenting in part. This is the second part. And before going to that, I want to read the disclaimer. The views expressed in the program are my views only. The viewers and members are requested to read the Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999 to arrive at their views and opinion. I am not responsible for any interpretation and clarification to anyone who is watching this program. This is only a knowledge updation program. And thank you very much for the visit to my site, YouTube. Now I am going to say about the foreign currency account of the exporters. This is also another part of it, diamond dollar account. So this is the word itself, you can understand. Those persons who are exporting the diamond, dealing in diamond, they have to open the account. What are the rules they have to follow? And only the partnership firms and companies are eligible to open diamond dollar account. That means other than these two status, no one is eligible to open the diamond dollar account. So this, you can use it for the business of purchase, sales of rough and cut and polished diamonds, precious metal jewelry, plain and studded with or without diamond and or with stones and or with other stones. So it is directly related to the diamond business. And the track record, who is eligible to open the track record? The person who, that is the firm and companies, should have got a good track record of 2 years in export and import of the diamonds, as stated above. And the average annual turnover in the last 3 preceding years, that is, they say that preceding 3 licensing years is 3 crores and above are eligible to open this one. That means they have to produce a statement of account to the bankers, so that the bankers, they have to say it's only the average turnover. So in the last year, the turnover will be around 9 crores. This year, maybe 1 crore. Next year, it will be 3 crores. So when you do the average, you will get the average annual turnover. So these are the persons eligible to open the diamond dollar account. This will be useful for them, and that too you have to open in foreign currency account. This account can be opened by the exporter. So the thing is, the applicant should be firm and companies. They are eligible to open, that is by the exporters, and maintain in dollars only. And diamond dollar account, another slide is, so opened as current account with authorized dealers. Who authorized dealers of category 1, that person is eligible to open current account, and that too he can open 5 accounts. That means 5 type of different trade with reference to diamond dollar account he can open. But for the, it's only a current account, so no interest will be paid to that account, and no intra transfer is permitted. So that is diamond dollar of DDA 1, DDA 2, it cannot transfer. So each has got a separate trade. So no fund transfer should take place between one current account and another current account. And exporter firms and companies maintaining foreign currency account, so excluding EFC with the banks in India or abroad, are not eligible to open DDA. So that is, no exporters other than the diamond exporters are allowed to open DDA. So you should be a diamond exporter, and no one is allowed to open diamond dollar account. So debits are allowed. What are the debits are allowed to? From the account, debits are allowed to purchase and import of diamonds, to purchase or import of diamonds, purchase in local market and import of diamonds from abroad, and jewelry, and loan repayment in dollars and transfer to rupees of the exporter. These are the permitted debits allowed. And this is what I want to say about the diamond dollar account. The very much important is only partnership firm and diamond exporters, they are eligible to open this account, and no one else, they are eligible to open this account, and they can open the account in foreign currency. Now we are going to discuss about the EFC, that is Export Earners Foreign Currency Account. Now we are going to discuss what are the eligible credit into the account. This account can be opened only with 100% foreign exchange earnings through inward remittances, payments received in foreign exchange. So the credit side we are going to discuss. The account can be opened only in foreign exchange. All the inward remittances you have to put it and this account. By 100% UOU and by units in SEZ with 100% exports, counter trade payments, advance towards payments, or all this you can get the same in this account. And by professional earnings in individual capacity, including the director fees, consultancy fees, lecture fees, honorarium, and similar other earnings, you can do it. All this also should come to the account. And payment received in foreign exchange by an Indian startup, that amount should also come in AEFC, and EFC account. Only the foreign exchange earnings you have to put it. Recredit of unutilized foreign exchange account. Recredit of unutilized foreign. So what is uncredit thing is you have taken the you have taken some foreign exchange from India, and you have not utilized that amount. So you have to give credit to the EEFC account. Then not to be credited. What are the accounts not to be credited to EEFC account is foreign exchange loan raised or investment received from outside India, or those received for meeting the specific obligation. These are also foreign exchange loan. Suppose if any loan is received from abroad in foreign exchange loan, that amount should not be given credit in EEFC account. And investment received from outside India, so that should not also be credited to EEFC account. And sometimes the investment may be received to meet these specific obligations. That amount should also be not be credited in the EEFC account. From the EEFC account, what is the debit? So these are the things that whenever you are doing export of goods and services, this account plays a very, very vital role. And now what is a debit? So payment towards capital account or current account transaction from this EFC account is permitted under FEMA. So payment is permitted, and payment towards 100% EOU towards purchase of goods, that is also allowed. So payment is also allowed, and payment of customs duty, the trade related loans and advances by an exporter to importer outside there. So payment of customs duty, trade related loans, so all advances, because you have to be very, very careful, because whenever you want to take the money from India, that is repatriation from India to abroad, this should be permitted by FEMA. So payment of customs duty or trade related advances by an exporter to importer customer outside India. So whenever they want to make the payment outside India in customs duty, that is also allowed. So payment in foreign exchange to a person resident in India for supply of goods and services, including payments for airfare and hotel expenditure. So, and withdrawal is permitted provided no credit in the account. So you can allow the withdrawal. If withdrawal is allowed in Indian rupee and no further credit into the account. So that is that's a very, very important with reference to EFC account. What are the other highlights are? It is a non-interest bearing account. No interest has to be paid in this account, because it is almost equivalent to current account. No interest will be paid, and ECGC and insurance claims settled in rupees should not be paid. So here only foreign exchange amounts have to be foreign exchange account, that is cash has to foreign exchange currencies or foreign exchange transactions have to be credited. So any transaction done in rupee, it will not be allowed. Suppose ECGC and insurance claim received in foreign exchange, then that is allowed. But if it is received in rupee, it should not be credited into the EFC account. So conversion of foreign exchange into Indian currency, value at the month end for approved purpose or forward commitment. So every month you have to convert the foreign exchange into Indian currency at the month end for the approved purpose. So that is allowed. So fund-based and non-fund-based loans should not be granted against the balance in the account. So that means no loan is eligible to be sanctioned by the manager under EFC account. This point you have to bear in mind. And it's very, very simple. No loan should be given under EFC. So exporters can repay the PCL whether available in Indian rupee or not. So from the EFC account, exporters can transfer the money to packing credit loan. That is allowed. But whether the loan has been received in Indian rupee or not, that is that they have given some concession. So exporters can repay the PCL out of this EFC account. Balance in this account is credited. Suppose whatever be the balance in this account can be given credit to the NRE account, FCNRB, and account open upon the change of the residential address from resident to non-resident. Normally, a resident will become non-resident, but resident to non-resident, it is allowed. So they have to open that is the balance in the account can be credited to NRE and FCNRB account. These are the very much higher, that is highlights of EFC account. We have seen the diamond dollar account, we have seen the EFC account. So these two accounts are very much important with reference to export of goods and services. Next one is we are going to discuss about the counter trade arrangements. That is CTA. That is it's a counter trade arrangement. That is you are doing import, I am doing export. So how to adjust? So CTA is entered voluntarily between Indian party and overseas party. So we are going to have a transaction. So there should be a voluntary agreement. The agreement should be there to have a counter trade arrangement. That is adjust the value of goods imported against the goods exported. So you and me, we are doing import and export business. So I have to pay you and you have to pay me. You have to net it. So this is being adjusted in the counter trade arrangement agreement. And for this, you have to open a separate account. That account is called as escrow account. And the very, very important thing is that you have to open the escrow account in US dollars and not in any other currency. So that is the very, very important thing. So counter trade, that is also another situation. So export and import balance of payments can be adjusted. But for this, RBI, so because you say that we are going to have a counter trade arrangements or agreements, then RBI will consider that agreement based on the following conditions. That is, what are the RBI condition is that all imports and exports under the arrangement should be at the international prices. So we should not say, when I do the export, I'll get duty drawback. So if I quote higher amount to get the duty drawback, and when you import it, you quote less price, it should not be allowed. So it should be, the prices should be in conformity with the foreign trade policy under FEMA of 1999 and the rules and regulations. And second thing is, no interest will be payable on the balance of escrow. So whenever any escrow account is being opened, no interest will be paid in that account. So that point, in general, if any escrow account is being opened, no interest will be paid, and no loans also can be availed against that escrow account. Here, that's a balance. You say that there is no interest, but I utilize the amount only after some time. So a temporary transfer as short-term deposit is permitted. That is, in a block of 1 year, 12 months, you can make a deposit for a period of 3 months. So out of 12 months, you can have only one period of deposit to the extent of 3 months. And normally what the interest rate applicable for the 3 months, the bankers, they will pay to you. So, but directly to maintain the escrow account with the authorized dealers, no interest will be paid. But this deposit can be made by the exporter for a temporary period of 3 months in a block of 12 months. This is a very, very important thing that you have to remember. And what are the other conditions are? No fund-based or non-fund. So escrow account, no interest, no loan against the escrow balance. And application to open escrow account may be made by the overseas exporter organization through his or their authorized dealer to regional office of RBI. So the overseas buyer, he has to make the application to Reserve Bank of India, thereby escrow account is being allowed to be opened by the banker, by the RBI. And all the account opening has to be done by the authorized, only through the authorized dealers you have to take any transactions. So this is what you have to do it. So CTA, counter trade arrangement, adjusting of exporters, export process and import process. The balance, everything you have to keep it in escrow account. For the escrow account, there is no interest, but a deposit to the tune of 3 months you can make from the escrow account in a block of 12 months. This is the highlights of the counter trade arrangements. Now we are going to export to the neighboring countries, say Sri Lanka or what's the nearby countries, so Myanmar. So we can do it. We can do the export by road, rail, and river. Through this, we can do the export. The very, very highlight of this is whenever the goods crossed the border, at the border, you have to produce the records to the customs authorities. That's all. It's a very, very basic thing in this. In this area, we have to see. So exports are made to neighboring countries by road, rail, transport by exporters. So now you are the exporter. You are going to do the exports to the neighboring countries. So what are the procedures to be followed by exporters for filing the original copies of ADF? ADF means export declaration form. What are the procedures to be followed? So exports by barges, country crafts, road transport. If you are doing this from road transport through this EDF, the export declaration form has to be presented by the exporters or his agent at the customs station at the border before crossing to the before crossing over to the country. So very simple. Whenever any goods cross our country at the, so you have to produce all records at the border. So beyond that you can take it. So before going to that, you have to get the clearance from the customs authorities in India. Suppose if you are doing the exports by rail transport, you are doing it. So ADF has to be handed over to the customs staff posted at the designated railway stations for attending customs formality. So all railway stations are not having customs formalities, but those railway stations will be there at the border. So there you have to, submit the EDF export declaration form to fulfill all customs formalities. Then only the goods are allowed to move to the foreign country without any formalities at the border. So in railways, see, whenever you are doing the export through road, you have to hand over the all documents at the point of the place where the country border is over. So you have to produce all records in roads. With reference to rail, there is a designated railway station. There customs authorities have been posted. So there you have to produce all the records. So the train, it will not stop at the border. So it will definitely move to the other place. So if you produce all those records at the customs, the designated railway stations for attending the customs formalities, then goods will move to the next place, next neighboring country without anything. List of designated railway station, obtain this list from the railways authorities. This you can get it from the railway authorities. Thereby you can go and submit all your customs details. Next one is, other than designated, in this route, there is no designated railway station. What you have to do, the exporters have to submit the EDF to the customs authorities. So if you submit at the designated railway station, no problem. And in your route, there is no railway station, that is designated railway station. So you have to submit all the EDF details to the customs officer at the border land customs station where the customs formalities are completed. So very simple. In India, before crossing your India, you have to submit all the documents to the customs authorities for the clearance. So next one is border trade with Myanmar. All trade transactions now is permitted from 1/12/2015. Specifically, you can have a trade with Myanmar, and settlement can be permitted in any permitted currency in addition to ACU mechanism, because Myanmar is a member of Asian Clearing Union. So you can get ACU dollar, ACU euro, ACU yen. But with reference to Myanmar, that's a specific thing. The money can be settled in any currency, any permitted currency. And that means that currency should have value and it should have convertible currency, and you can do the transaction. Now, before this barter system, it was there between Myanmar and India. Now that the trade has been discontinued from 1/12/15, because they say that transactions are permitted from 1/12/15. This is the highlight of the border trade transaction with the Myanmar. And next one is counter trade arrangement, trade arrangement with Romania. So RBI will consider the trade proposals of Indian exporters with Romania, because a specific thing, because some problems are there. So adjust value of the exports with goods. Agreement made voluntary. Only the agreements made voluntarily, you can adjust the value of, that is CTA, adjust the value of exports with the imports. Utilize the funds of imports within 6 months from the date of credit to the escrow account to be allowed to be open. So in Romania, you are allowed to open a escrow account. So you have to transfer the fund. You have to utilize the import funds within 6 months from the date of credit to the exporter. Now, repayment of state credit. That is, this is with the transactions which has taken place in that is I mean Russia, that is Union of Russia. Export of this is related to export of goods and services, and against the repayment of state credits granted by SY-USSR, that is Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Before bifurcation, before dividing Russia into various parts. So this is the advance repayment of state credits that is still to be continued to be governed. So if the agreement is already there, so the repayment can start to come into India. This is another thing that we are to see with reference to export of goods and services to that extent granted by Reserve Bank of India as amended from time to time. So money which has come from USSR, the RBI should give the permission to what extent the money has to come, and this will be decided according to time and time. So forfeiting, next word that we have to see is forfeiting. This is a French word. That means it means to give something or to give up one side. This is with reference to forfeiting. And the exporters, so this is a very, very important highlights of forfeiting. Exporter surrenders his right to receive the payment in future. He surrenders. What's the right to receive the money? So this surrenders to someone, to some other bank, so that they will get some money. They will it's just like discounting of receivables with other with the bankers, with the authorized dealers, or with the banks designated by the Reserve Bank of India. So for the immediate cash payment, so he wants immediate payment. What he will do? Okay, he has to pay 2,000. I'll give this with the 1,900. You take the rest, whatever be the amount, you take it. So if that type of thing is being taken place, that is called as forfeiting, and it's a source to the exporters, because it's just like surrendering the rights. Okay, you take this and give the money. So you take the profit, loss, I am not bothered. So it's a source of finance to the exporters, gets the funds from the institutions. Those institutions which is giving the fund to the exporter through the forfeiting, that is forfeiting mode, is called as forfeiter. Then exporter gets money from forfeiter. That is on the due date, the forfeiter gets the money from the person who has to pay. It's nothing but discounting of your receivables, exporters' receivables. They have handed over everything to the bankers, so they have got the money. So this exporter is going on doing the business, but on the due date, those person who has purchased these goods, they will surrender this to the person who has to pay, and they will get the money, and the profit or loss will be borne by the forfeiter and not by the exporter. And the very, very simple thing is purchasing of the receivables. And subsidiaries are also formed by banks for forfeiting. So banks cannot do directly. So they formed some subsidiaries only for the purpose of purchasing the receivables. That is that. Next, who is called as forfeiter? And Exim Bank, Export and Import Bank, they are permitted to do forfeiting, and as well as along with the authorized dealer first category bank, they are permitted to do forfeiting, and no one else are allowed to do it. So that means banks, they are allowed to do it. Then Exim banks, they are allowed to do it. So all those banks should be coming under the category of authorized dealer first category. And remittances of commitment fees, service charges as payable by the exporter is also allowed by the exporter. So they got the money for fighting. So in that, the commitment fee and service charges have to be paid by the exporter. So that is also being taken care of by the authorized dealer bank. And such remittances can be made in advance in one lump sum or at monthly intervals as approved by the authority. So it's just like the forfeiter gives the money in advance to the exporter. You take the money, or every month we will give this amount, because based on the realization also they can give the money. So this is the modus operandi of forfeiting. Next thing is a very, very important thing with reference to export, because I'm going a little bit fast, because these are the basic things that everyone should know, because you are going to do audit, or you are going to do business of export of goods and services. So export factoring on non-recourse basis. So here you should know the two meanings of export factoring. One is export factoring and second one is non-recourse fees. What is export factoring? That you should know. Export factoring is a complete financial package that combines export working capital financing, credit protection, foreign accounts receivable, bookkeeping, and collection services. So all this, that means nothing but giving loan. It's a financial package, giving loan by the bankers to the exporters. So it's a complete financial package that combines all export working capital financing, credit protection, foreign accounts receivable, bookkeeping, and collection of the services. Now, the factor also assumes the risk of the ability of the foreign buyer. So because it's the risk is being analyzed to pay and handles the collection on the receivables. So the factor here is in export financing, the very much important thing that everyone should know is whether the foreign buyer is able to make the payment. So he will give the order. You may give the goods on after production, you may supply, but whether that foreign buyer is able to make the payment. So to what extent that risk is there in that foreign buyer, that will be decided in this export factoring. Next one is non-recourse. So you are given the fund. So non-recourse means the payment will be made against that finance only out of profit and not against all other sources. So this is a very, very important thing. That time is a commercial type of lending. It's a commercial type of lending that entitles a lender to repayment only from the profits on the project of the loan and not from any other accessory part. So only when the borrower has earned the profit, then they will repay the loan. This is called as non-recourse basis, but there are a lot of conditions. In case of default, the buyer is not able to make the payment. Then the lender may not seize any assets of the borrower beyond the collateral. Suppose if any collateral is being given, so to that extent, the lender can go and seize the property and not beyond that. Suppose if he has got some 3 properties and he has given only one property as collateral, so the power to recover is restricted only to the property which has been given as collateral. And AD banks, that is authorized dealer banks, have been permitted to factor receivables on a recourse basis. So authorized dealer bank and also the Exim Bank are also, they can do this. Here exporters, Exim Bank is not there, only authorized dealer banks, they can do the export factoring on non-recourse basis. Exporters to get more cash flow, because of this the exporters will get more flow. Only when they earn profit, they will make the repayment. So that is required for them to meet the working capital requirement. But what are the conditions that he has to follow is authorized balance. It's a duty of the authorized banks, authorized dealer banks, to take its own decision. So there should not be any direction from anyone. And exporter and the bankers, they will see that exporter is not being overfinanced. If he has been overfinanced, then it is not possible for them to repay the loan, or it is not possible for them to invest in the project correctly. So invoice purchase should represent the genuine trade invoice. Suppose if any genuine, because you have exported some goods, so you are given the invoice, and it is a duty of the authorized dealer banks to see that those invoices are genuine or not. So that is very, very important. But everything is the response. Everything here, it is the responsibility of the authorized dealer banks, and not done on export factor. If it is not done on export factor, then export factor passes on the net value to the financing bank institution after realizing the export process. So only after realization of export process, then the amount can be adjusted towards loan. So here, if it is not done through export factor, so even they can realize any money from any source. But if it is being, if export factor is there, then in the non-recourse basis, then only the repayment can be made out of the profit. Authorized dealer bank, being the export factor, should have arrangement with the import factor for credit evaluation and collection point, because it is a duty of the authorized dealer bank to consider whether the party has got a genuine transaction or not, and he has to take care of all credit evaluation and collect at the credit evaluation as well as the collection of payment. Every decision has to be taken by the authorized dealer banks. So notation should be made on the invoice that the importer has to make the payment to the import factor. Suppose if any goods have been made on the basis of importers, when he has to make the payment, so the payment has to be made only to that bank or not to anyone. So it has to noted in the invoice that the payment has to be made, should not be made to the party, it should be made only to the authorized dealer banks. Other important points are after factoring, closure of export factor has to be reported. After factoring means, so they are financed and this things, the bank, authorized dealer bank, they have to inform the Reserve Bank of India. And in case of a single factor, no involvement of import factor, export factor may obtain credit evaluation details from the corresponding bank abroad. Suppose if the transaction has taken place at foreign country between Indian bankers and foreign country bank, then they should have some confidential opinion or credit evaluation that should be carried out. And KYC and due diligence to be done by the export factor. So it is a duty of the authorized finance to carry out the KYC and due diligence report. Now, this is what we have to know about the export factoring of non-recourse basis. So export factoring, it's and the repayment mode is very much important. The repayment has to be made only out of the assets, and if anything goes wrong, then the bank, that is authorized dealer bank, can go against the borrower only to the extent of collateral security and not against any other property. Now we are going for the project exports and service exports. Project exports and service exports. What is project exports? Project export is export of engineering goods on deferred payment terms and evaluation execution on turnkey projects and civil construction contracts abroad. So turnkey, what is turnkey? So from baseline to installation to till the unit has commenced its production, it is called as turnkey. That is, the entire thing is being taken care of by the bankers. So if they are doing, and if they are doing it abroad, it is called as project exports. And civil construction contracts abroad. So they can go and construct the construction at abroad. So this is called as project exports. And here, authorized dealer bank category 1 and Exim Bank permission is required because they are going to finance it. So before execution of such contract, you have to, that is, the exporter has to submit all the contracts details to authorized dealer bank as well as Exim Bank for the post award approval. So they have to get the post award. Say after preparation, they have to submit post award approval. That is, they have to get the post award approval from authorized dealer bank and the Exim Bank. So within FAMA guidelines and regulations, post award approval without any monetary limit at exchange may be considered. Suppose without okay, this agreement is correct, this. So the AD Bank and the Exim Bank, they will go through it and the permission is being granted, but it is also subject to any change. Suppose in future, if they want to make the change, that is also permitted, but the approval is being given without the monetary limit, but everything depends on the project cost. So they have to prepare the project report. Here, this is another professional opportunity to the chartered accountant, that the preparation of project reports for this exports projects is very, very important. So you can undertake. And project and service exports approach concern AD Bank and Exim Bank based on their commercial judgment and AD Bank and Wilman. So thing is, you have to make application to authorized dealer bank and Exim Bank with the project and with the contract, everything, and they have to give the approval. And after giving the approval, then that AD Bank and Exim Bank, they will monitor the source. They will monitor the project. In order to have greater flexibility in conducting overseas transactions, the following facilities have been provided, subject to the satisfaction of Exim Bank and AD Bank, that is foreign currency or outside India investments. So what are the satisfaction area, or what are the facilities that they can monitor? Inter-project transfer of machinery. So there are two projects you can transfer the machinery, that is permitted under this under this concept. Inter-project transfer of funds. So you have filed for A project and B project. So if you get the permission from authorized dealer or Exim Bank, you can transfer the machinery, you can transfer the funds. But everything, it requires the permission of authorized dealer bank and Exim Bank. And deployment of temporary surplus. Suppose in one project you have got surplus, this surplus can be parked temporarily in another project. That is also. And repatriation of funds in the case of on-site export, that is only profits on completion of the contract. So you have entered into the contract, you have completed the contract, you have earned the profit, but this profit should be repatriated to the India, that is on-site exports. So you have done some contract, you have completed, and the profits are there. Then you have to repatriate that to India. So next one we have to see is expand. So far in this we have seen the projects. So in these projects, project report has to be prepared, project agreement has to be approved, and AD Bank and Exim Bank, they will take the follow-up action, and they will monitor in such a way that they can do the inter-project transfer of machinery, inter-transfer of funds, and in case if any surplus is there, then that can be temporarily parked in other projects, and repatriation of funds on-site. That is also possible. Now we are going for export of goods on lease. Now you are going to export the goods. Here in one of my cases, I came to know that the lorries have been lorries they purchased in India, and they are given the lorries to abroad for temporary contract. So that is on lease basis or higher basis they are given. What are the important things that you have to do it? RBI's prior approval is required for export of machinery equipment on lease HP under agreement with the overseas lessee against the lease rental or hire charges and ultimate reimport. The thing is, you can give the lorry or any equipment, machinery on lease or hire to the foreigner to the overseas lessee, and all the terms and conditions have to be informed to Reserve Bank of India, and Reserve Bank of India's prior approval is required, and with the condition that those machineries or those equipments have to be re-imported to India. This is a very, very important thing. So in this way also you can do it, but RBI permission is required. So apply for from to whom we have to apply. So we have to apply the permission to authorized dealer bank, to regional office of concerned RBI, giving full particulars of the goods exported. So this is also another thing. So you need not to export only the goods, but you can export the machinery on lease, and with the condition that you have to get it re-imported. But for doing this, you have to get RBI permission, prior approval. You have to get it, but this application you have to make through the authorized dealers. Now, export on elongated, there is long credit terms. So this is also possible, but long credit. So we have done the things on long credit terms. So you can pay some matter 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So exporters for this, if they prolong the period of repayment, they have to get the prior approval from RBI, and the application has to be made through the authorized dealer one bank. And all the exporters, he has to furnish all the terms and conditions with reference to the export, which has got elongated credit terms. Elongated means a long credit term. Say 10 years, after 10 years, you have to make the payment, because everything that you have to bring to India whenever you do the export. So this is the thing you have to bear in mind. Another thing is export of foreign currency. That means to what extent you have to take the money from India. So RBI permission is required for any export of Indian currency except for general permission. So RBI has already given general permission that if the ceiling exceeds, you have to get the RBI permission. What is the general permission? Is any person resident in India, if he wants to go abroad, he can take outside India, that is other than Nepal and Bhutan, currency notes of Government of India, that is Indian rupee, you can carry to the extent of 25,000. Up to the extent of 25,000, you can take the money from India to abroad. This is the this is called as export of currency. He's a resident in India, he's going abroad, he can take 25,000 rupees, and if he goes outside India, other than Nepal and Bhutan. Next one is any person resident outside India, not being a citizen of Pakistan and Bangladesh, and traveler coming from Bangladesh, Pakistan. So Bangladesh, suppose even if he is a citizen of Bangladesh and Pakistan, he is not allowed to take the money outside India. But if that person is a resident outside India, he can take the money if currency notes of Government of India and RBI, that is RBI, even on, so RBI issues 1 rupee note. So up to an amount of 25,000. So a resident or person resident outside India he can take the Indian currency to the value of 25,000 other than the citizens of Pakistan, Bangladesh. This is what I want to say. These are basic things we should know, because suddenly you are leaving India for business. So to what extent you have to carry the money, that point you have to see. So thank you very much for the patient hearing. This from this portion, I am completing the part 2 of export of goods and services under FEMA, because the very interesting thing, because you should know all the basic things of export of goods and services. Thank you very much for the patient hearing, and any doubt, you are welcome. You can put it in the YouTube message box, because I'm going to upload this in the YouTube, and there you can put your suggestion, you can put your observation and everything about this program. And thank you very much. I'll meet once again on the part 3 of export of goods and services. Thank you. Nandri. Vanakkam.